Well, pretty soon we found out that this guy with the shakes had talked too much. And a bunch of coppers are waiting for us down at the bank. So we don't say nothing. Lefty Jackson goes out and gets his gun. Comes back and sits down and holds it across his knee. The guy with the shakes is sitting right across the room from him. Pretty soon Lefty just touched the trigger a little. And the gun went.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Today on the Classic Movie Reviews podcast, we are taking on High Sierra 1941. High Sierra 1941 has so much going for it. The film has a parade of great actors including, but not limited to, Humphrey Bogart, Joan Leslie, Henry Hull, Barton McLean, and Ida Lupino. Legendary early Hollywood director Raoul Walsh directed the film. And if that weren't enough, John Huston was the lead screenwriter. This movie is listed on imdb.com as a film noir, and that is generally the standard I use. However, a large group of people believe that The Maltese Falcon 1941 was the first true film noir. But High Sierra 1941 was released on January 25th, 1941, almost 9 months before the release of The Maltese Falcon, which came out August 18th, 1941. Others consider Stranger on the Third Floor 1940 to be the first real film noir. This movie was released August 16th, 1940, rendering the above issue moot. I don't have the answer to this issue, I just put it out there for thought. I can say that this movie has one of the most devious femme fatales ever. She meets the definition of an attractive woman that leads men who love them to their doom, and it's not who you think. IMDb.com rates this movie as 7.5. RottenTomatoes.com has it as 90% on the tomato meter and 78% audience approval. I have to agree with these numbers. It's a very good movie with fine acting. It's not a great movie. New York Times film critic Bosley Carruthers said in part on January 25th, 1941, quote, "We wouldn't know for certain whether the twilight of the American gangster is here, but the Warner Brothers, who should know if anybody does, have apparently taken it for granted and, in a solemn, Wagnerian mood, are giving that titanic figure a send-off befitting a first-string god in the film called High Sierra. Bogart, the last of the great gunmen, when lodged on a high mountain crag with an army of coppers below, he shouts defiantly at his tormentors ere his noble soul take flight. It's truly magnificent, that's all. As a matter of fact, and aside from the virtues of the film itself, it is rather touching to behold that Warner's pays such a glowing tribute, for no one has made a better thing out of the legendary gangsters than they have. No one has greater reason to grow nostalgic about the bad boys of yesteryear, who, as one of the characters in High Sierra reverently remarks, are all either dead or doing time now in Alcatraz. So indeed we are deeply moved by this honest payment of respects to an aging and graying veteran of the 1930s banditti who makes his last stand his best. Bogart is a notorious hold-up man who is sprung out of an Illinois prison by an old gangland pal who wants him in California for a big job. But the gunman has got some ideas about freedom and the joy of living. He wants to marry a simple little girl he met on the road heading west. He wants to do good things because, you see, he really has a good heart. Well, you know what that means. It's just as old Doc Bannon tells him, Doc being the quack who tends Big Mac. He says, "Remember what Johnny Dillinger said about guys like you and him. He said you're just rushing towards death. That's it, you're rushing towards death." Unquote. This movie is one of the three that knocked George Raff out of contention for top gangster roles. I'll talk a little more about that in the summary section. Actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
Humphrey Bogart plays the recently bought out of prison killer, Mad Dog Roy Earle. Bogart's character could have easily been hardened killer Duke Mantee from the Petrified Forest 1936 after spending time in the Crossbar Motel. Bogart was first covered in Sahara 1943. Joan Leslie is perfect in the role of sweet and lovable club-footed Velma. But she has a surprise, and it's a whopper. The talented actress was first covered in Sergeant York 1941. Henry Hall, with his incredible voice, plays Doc Banton. Hall was first covered in The Buccaneer in 1958, but he's better known for wolfing out in The Werewolf of London 1935. Jerome Cowan is newspaperman Healy, and Barton McLean is gangster Jack Cranmer. The two actors were both covered in The Maltese Falcon 1941. Henry Travers was Pa, and Elizabeth Risdon was Ma, the grandparents of Velma. Of course, Henry Travers was first covered as Clarence the Angel in It's a Wonderful Life 1946. Elizabeth Risdon played a lot of aunts and mothers. Cornell Wilde played resort worker Louise Mendoza. This actor was first covered in The Big Combo 1955. Ida Lupino played the role of dime dance girl Marie. Lupino was born in England in 1918. Born to an acting family, she was pushed on the stage at a very early age. In 1931, she began taking background roles in British films. She enrolled in the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts and continued to appear in movies and on stage. Lupino began appearing in American films starting in 1934. She had a long list of solid movies that began with Peter Ibbotson, 1935, The Light That Failed, 1939, Sea Devils, 1937, The Sea Wolf, 1941, and Ladies in Retirement, 1941. She was in the right place for the rise of film noir, war, and dramas that included They Drive by Night, 1940, High Sierra, 1941, The Hard Way, 1943, The Man I Love, 1946, Roadhouse, 1948, not the one with Patrick Swayze, On Dangerous Ground, 1951, Beware My Lovely, 1952, The Bigamist, 1953, which she also directed, The Big Knife, 1955, Women's Prison, 1955, Strange Intruder, 1956, and While the City Sleeps, 1956. During this period, she was also directing. Her directing work in films consists of uncredited work in Not Wanted, 1949, Outrage, 1950, Never Fear, 1950, On Dangerous Ground, 1951, where she was again uncredited, Hard, Fast, and Beautiful, 1951, The Bigamist, 1953, The Hitchhiker, 1953, which is on the National Film Registry, and The Trouble with Angels, 1966, which is a funny and poignant film. Lupino began acting on television around 1954, and she even directed on this medium. She returned to film in the 1970s with Junior Bonner, 1972, The Devil's Reign, 1975, The Food of the Gods, 1976, where giant rats and other animals attacked some campers, and My Boys Are Good Boys, 1978. She died in 1995. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
The credits roll over a shot of a rocky peak. An eastern state capitol building is shown, where inside the governor signs a pardon for Roy Earle. The time is set as fall 1932. Roy, Humphrey Bogart, is released from the stony Mossmore prison. He is wearing the classic high sidewalls haircut that bank robber John Dillinger always had. Roy is met by a gangster, George Lloyd, who has a car waiting. Roy informs the gangster that he will first be going to sit in the park.
I was getting kind of nervous, Earle. I've been waiting over an hour. I've been waiting too, over 8 years. The park's down there, ain't it? Yeah, the park. Say, Earle, you feeling all right?
The freed criminal takes time to look at the trees and to watch the children play. A trash man stabs a newspaper that tells of Roy's release and public backlash. When the paper comes down, Jack Cranmer, Barton McLean, and a blonde, Isabel Jewell, are in an apartment. Cranmer orders the woman out of the room, but she wants to meet the famous criminal. When Roy comes in, Cranmer tells him that he is running things at this inn and that Big Mac, Donald McBride, has moved to California. Roy doesn't like Cranmer because he's an ex-cop. Cranmer gives Roy the rundown. He is to rob a resort in the richest little town in the world, so I assume outside of Reno. Roy is given money and keys to a car. Cranmer tells him to start right away. Cranmer tells Roy that Big Mac spent a lot of money getting him sprung, and when he calls the tune, Roy must dance to it. Roy gives Cranmer a double slap and leaves. Roy heads west and soon hits the Indiana state line. He stops by the old family farm. He talks to the farmer, Earle Alderson, and a boy that has been fishing. The farmer realizes who Roy is and his awkward expression causes Roy to move on. When Roy gets to the high desert of California, he gets stuck behind an old jalopy. Driving the ancient car are Ma, Elizabeth Drisden, Pa, Henry Travers, and Velma, Joan Leslie, their granddaughter. With a few more people, they could have just as well been the Jodes from Oklahoma. As Roy begins to pass the car, a jackrabbit jumps on the road, causing Pa to swerve, running Roy off the road. It is interesting to note at this point that director Raoul Walsh lost an eye after a jackrabbit crashed his car windshield. A bit later, Roy stops to get gas. He looks at the peaks of the Sierra Nevada mountains. The jalopy pulls in, and Paul goes right into the story of the jackrabbit and how Roy's driving saved them.
Wow, we made it. I'd sure like to shake your hand, sir. Jackrabbit jumped in front of my car and I kind of lost my head. You sure saved our bacon. I saved my own bacon, too.
Paul says they are going to Los Angeles to live with Velma's mother and her new husband. Roy drives into the mountains. He is amazed by the grandeur. He drives into Sleepy Shaw's fishing camp. Algernon, Willie Best, the only African American in the film, is sleeping. He is used for comic relief. The men Roy is to meet are in cabin 12. Roy is sent to cabin 11. He sees the bored Marie, Ida Lupino, sitting outside. Red, Arthur Kennedy, is called outside. He is followed by Babe, Alan Curtis. Roy takes Red for a walk. Roy orders Red to send Marie away. Red tells that the inside man for the job is Luis Mendoza, Cornell Wilde. He also says Mendoza is in contact with Big Ed. Red gushes over Roy a bit, but the old-time gangster doesn't want to hear it. Babe is running down Roy in front of Marie. When Red gives her the goodbye news, Babe backs down. Marie decides to talk to Roy herself. She tells that she knows the entire setup because Mendoza runs his mouth too much.
Why do you want to send me back to L.A.? I like it here.
Don't play dumb.
I don't intend to. Well, I know what's going on, but I didn't get it from them. Louis Mendoza told me. He talks too much and all he does is brag. So you see, Mr. Earle, Mendoza's the one for you to worry about, not me.
Marie says she can control the two younger gangsters. Roy lets her stay. Algernon is sleeping on the dock when he catches a fish and does some more eye rolling. The dog Pard, played by Zero, comes into Roy's room with Algernon. Algernon says that the last 2 or 3 people that took the dog have died or gotten sick. Marie arrives with Roy's breakfast. Roy talks about prison and people committing suicide. He says he likes to crash out. Marie has the same feelings about her life too. Algernon tells some fishermen that Pard is putting the hex on Roy. Mendoza shows up and Roy meets up with the entire gang. Mendoza gives them a map and says Big Mac wants to see him. Big Mac has sent them a machine gun. Roy gives Mendoza a warning about talking too much, backed up by a death threat.
Hey, you know, that gun reminds me of one time 9 or 10 years ago. We were getting ready to do a job back in Iowa. And one of the guys got the shakes. Well, pretty soon we found out that this guy with the shakes had talked too much. And a bunch of coppers are waiting for us down at the bank. So we don't say nothing. Lefty Jackson goes out and gets his gun. Comes back and sits down and holds it across his knee. The guy with the shakes is sitting right across the room from him. Pretty soon Lefty just touched the trigger a little. And the gun went like that.
Roy goes to case the resort. Roy grabs a tennis racket and no one questions him about being in the swanky resort. Mendoza gets really nervous when he sees Roy. After Roy leaves the resort, he sees an accident ahead. The local Richies are accosting Pa. They say Velma was driving, but Pa says he was. Roy cleans up the mess with a little bravado. Velma gets out of the car and she has a club foot. The family and Roy go to Brown's Auto Court where they are staying. Pa says it was Velma's fault. Roy has gotten the other car driver to give Pa $100. Roy asks about Velma's foot. Pa says that it can be fixed with an operation if they had the money. Velma and Roy look at the stars in the moonlight. Velma is sweet as pie. Roy leaves to go to Los Angeles. Pa says to look them up again so he can see Velma. As Roy rolls into the City of Angels, he doesn't have a care in the world. He goes to see Big Mac, who is holed up in a nice apartment. Big Mac is sick and can't get out of bed.
What's the matter, Mac?
I don't know. Can't eat. Just ain't hungry. And I can't sleep. Doc Banton says it's my past life catching up with me.
They talk about another friend of theirs who is a discredited doctor, Doc Banton, Henry Hull. Big Mac wants the jewelry from the robbery. Roy says the heist will go well if the younger gangsters don't fall apart. Big Mac says all of the A1 guys like Roy are dead or in Alcatraz. Doc comes in and he's like an old southern gentleman.
Well, I'll be Roy Earle, the old boy himself.
Hello, Doc.
Last time I saw you was when I was taking slugs out of Lefty Jackson's chest.
Yeah, that's right.
Ah, those were the times. Not many of the old bunch left.
Oh, cut it out.
He and Roy talk in private, and Doc says Big Mac is on his way out. Roy asks about fixing Velma's club foot. Big Mac gives Roy instructions to follow if he dies before the job. Roy and Doc go to see Velma. Velma is super sweet to Roy. Velma's mother gives the Doc the business. Paul tells Roy not to pay for Velma's operation. Paul tells Roy that Velma has a 30-year-old divorced boyfriend back home.
Pretty, ain't she? Just as sweet as she's pretty.
Yeah.
Are you figuring on marrying Velma, Roy?
Well, I ain't got that far in my figuring.
When Velma comes out, she's sweet as sugar to Roy when she finds out he is paying for the operation. Later, Doc reminds Roy that Dillinger once said, guys like them are rushing towards death. Pard wakes up when Roy pulls into the fish camp. Marie is in Roy's room holding a .45. Babe has beaten her up, hit Red with a poker, and hurt Pard. Roy goes to find Babe. Red wakes up and comes out looking for Babe. Roy takes a gun away from Red and goes to get Babe out of the store. Roy takes Red and Babe back to the cabin where Marie is waiting. Roy wants Marie to hit him, but she won't. Roy pistol whips Babe. He tells him and Red to leave, but if they stay, he will shoot the first one that gets out of line. They decide to stay. Marie says she is staying with Roy. He says he's going to send her home in the morning. When Roy has a bad dream, she sees a softer side of him. In the morning, she cooks and tries to endear herself to him. Marie says she has tried to crash out before, and hooking up with Roy will be her real crash out from her old life.
Roy, remember what you were saying the other day about prison? And the way you kept from going crazy by thinking all the time about a crash out?
Uh-huh.
Well, that's the way it's been with me. I've been trying to crash out ever since I can remember.
When she starts crying, Roy weakens and lets her stay. He tells her she could never be special to him. Later, Roy tells Red and Babe that he and Marie are going to L.A. Pard chases the car and they decide to bring him along. Roy goes to see Velma. Ma and Pa are happy to see Roy. Velma is in bed and she gives Roy a cheek kiss. She is being exceedingly sweet. Roy offers Velma a trip around the world and he wants to marry her.
If this deal goes through the way it ought to, that I'd like to take a trip around the world. If you didn't want to take a trip around the world, what would you like to do? You see, Velma, I'd sure like to marry you. I ain't so old. I'm gonna have plenty of dough someday.
Gee, I don't know. You sure been wonderful to us, Roy. And Pa says there's no better man than you. But, Roy...
You got somebody back home, I guess. I guess that lets me out.
But we can still be friends, though, can't we, Roy?
Velma goes into full crawfish mode. She says she wants to marry the guy from back home and invites Roy to join the friend zone. When Roy leaves, Velma cries and she says she wants to dance all night long. Later, back at the fish camp, Algernon brings a telegram from Mendoza saying the robbery is on for the night. In code. They prepare for the job and Marie looks really sad. Roy makes her take Pard to Algernon along with $5. After the heist, Roy and Marie will head to LA with the jewels while Red and Babe take the cash and go back to the fishing camp to wait. Roy says they will pay Marie a share of the loot. They go in 2 cars. Pard escapes out an open window. He runs the car down and Marie talks Roy into picking up the dog. Marie waits in the car with the dog while Roy, Red, and Babe go inside to begin the robbery. A car pulls up outside and Marie signals with the horn. They now have 3 hostages plus Mendoza. An old security guard comes by on his rounds. Marie signals again. The woman hostage screams and the guard tries to shoot Roy. Roy guns him down. Red and Babe come running out of the back with the loot they have collected. Mendoza runs out and leaves with Red and Babe, although he was supposed to stay. Red takes the wrong road and crashes in a flaming ball. Roy and Marie head over the mountains towards LA. Marie is talking about going with Roy, but he wants to give her the brush. Roy goes up to Big Mac's apartment. Cranmer answers the door and says Big Mac has gotten worse. The newspapers say Babe and Red are dead, but Mendoza survived. When they go into the bedroom, Big Mac is dead. Roy says he's going to follow Big Mac's instructions, but Cranmer wants to fence the jewels.
He's what? He's dead. Yeah, cold as a mackerel. Kicked off in his sleep, I guess. Say, what are you going to do with the stuff? Mac told me what to do in case something like this happened. I guess he had a feeling he'd never make it. Don't be a sap, Earle. Mac's dead and we're rich. I can get a fence to handle this stuff. Don't you see it? We're rich. Listen, Chisler, I'm still working for him, and so are you.
Cranmer pulls a gun and tries to take the jewels from Roy. Roy gets the jump and kills Cranmer, but he is wounded in the side. Marie drives him to Doc and gets him treated for the bullet wound. Roy asks about Velma. Marie and Roy go to see Velma. Marie is jealous. Inside the house, Velma is painted and dressed like a Jezebel. Her boyfriend and another couple are there drinking and dancing. Velma acts happy to see Roy. Marie lets Pard out so she can go inside and look at Velma. Marie is shocked that Velma is planning on getting married. Roy goes a little Ike Turner.
Oh, well, let's have a drink together first, Roy. You and your little girlie and me and my little Velma. Get your hands off me. I'm sorry. I don't like you. I don't like the way you talk, and I don't like your friends. I don't like to think of her being married to you.
Now, come on. You haven't got any right to say such things. Lon's going to be my husband, and I love him. And you're just jealous and mean because I don't want you, because I never wanted you.
And Velma says she never really liked Roy anyway. Roy takes the jewels to Santa Monica to meet the fence as he was instructed in Big Mac's letter. The fence says it will take a few days to get the money. He wants Roy to leave the jewels behind. Roy says he will kill the fence if they cheat him. Roy takes a ring out of the jewel box before he leaves. In the car, he gives the ring to Marie, and she is delighted. Marie and Roy are hiding in a motor court. The newspapers say that there is a $10,000 reward for him. Now Marie wants to get rid of Pard, and she's having a case of quarantine fever. Roy's bullet wound is getting infected. Roy makes a call at the gas station and sees a picture of himself in the paper. The money for the jewels is expected to be in that night. Roy goes to get gas, and the motor court man is calling the dog Pard. Roy puts the man in the closet and clubs him with a gun. Mendoza has told about Marie and Pard traveling with Roy. Roy is upset that the papers called him Mad Dog. Roy puts Marie on a bus for Las Vegas. She is carrying Pard in a wicker basket. Roy gives her all the money he has. As Roy drives, he hears on the radio that the auto court man has identified him. Roy stops in a small town and robs a drugstore. A cop walks in on the robbery, and Roy clubs him with a gun. The state police put the word out on Roy's location. They close in on him, and the maps show that he is around Manzanar, site of the future Japanese-American internment camp. Roy turns back at a roadblock, and the policemen chase after him into the mountains. Roy drives like a pro up the small dirt roads. The police are not very far behind. The road is closed, and Roy runs into the rocks, carrying a rifle and the machine gun. Roy takes a position in the hills where he can fire on the advancing police. When he opens up with the machine gun, the police scatter. The sheriff sends 2 men around, 2 up on top, and calls for Slim with his high-powered rifle. Marie jumps off the bus and heads back the other direction. Roy stays in the rocks into the night. Reporters arrive at the scene. Slim is asked to get above Roy in a good firing position. Marie makes it to the crowd watching the gun battle. Reporter Healy, Jerome Cowan, identifies Marie and Pard. He turns her over to the police. The sun rises bright and clear. The sheriff has not heard from Slim, who is on a 1,000-foot climb. They want Marie to call for Roy, but she refuses, knowing he would rather die. Pard heads out towards Roy as he uses one of his few remaining bullets to write a note. Slim is still moving in the rocks above Roy. The message Roy writes says Marie is innocent. When Roy hears the dog, he realizes Marie is below. He stands and starts calling for her. Slim shoots and kills Roy. The police, Marie, and Pard all run to Roy. The dog licks the hand of the dead man. Healy says Roy ain't much now. Marie asks what crashing out means, and Healy replies it means free.
Mister, what does it mean when a man crashes out?
Crashes out? It's a funny question for you to ask now, sister. Means he's free.
Free.
She picks up Pard and is escorted down the hill, repeating free over and over. I'll be back with conclusions and the world-famous short summary following a word from our sponsors. Summary. This movie has been remade a couple of times. The first was the Western Colorado Territory 1949, which Raoul Walsh also directed. The second time was I Died 1,000 Times 1955, which I've seen dozens of times. It's slightly easier to watch Jack Palance play a twisted mad dog killer. Apparently, the lead in this film was offered to Paul Muni and George Raft. Neither actor wanted to die at the end. Surrendering this role to Bogart was one of the mistakes that cost Raft his place as the top gangster movie actor. Michael Schragel said in a January 16, 2000 article in the New York Times that High Sierra 1941 was the last of the old-time gangster films, which were replaced with anti-hero westerns and film noir. Schragel describes W.R. Burnett's novel as American individualism meets existentialism and supports this with a movie quote as follows. "You always hope you can get out," says the former dime a dance gal Marie to the aging gangster Roy Earle. That sort of keeps you going. Roy has horrible memories of the Crossbar Motel, and he thinks fondly of his childhood family farm. Bogart plays out this bit about returning to the nostalgic past in Dead End 1937 with the same deadly result. Roy Earle gets involved with Velma, the quote, good girl, and Marie, the dance hall girl. He even adopts a stray dog, which was played by Bogart's own dog. This bit about adopting a stray dog was played up in the Western Silverado 1985. Sagro said this movie is about a man moving through unfamiliar territory to what Shakespeare called the undiscovered country. He continues saying the conflict of Roy Earle continues into films such as The Asphalt Jungle 1950, The Naked Spur 1953, Solog 17 1953, The Great Escape 1963, and The Wild Bunch 1969. According to Sagro, Velma represented Roy Earle's nostalgia for the past and unobtainable dreams. At the same time, his relationship with Marie, the reality of his chosen life. Lupino often played down-and-out women who were looking for a way out. Her first so-called trapped character was in today's film. Marie is a dime-a-dance girl but longs for an everyday life. Roy Earle seems to want out also, but he fixates on the so-called good girl Velma as an appropriate wife. The great film critic Roger Ebert said that, ironically, Roy's profession never dampers his reputation except when it comes to domesticity. He is drawn to the good girl, Velma, Joan Leslie, but when she rejects him, he turns to the one woman he knows will take him, Marie. He brings up some interesting questions for Marie, Lupino's character, who he believes went through the most significant transformation in the film. Will her life return to what it was, or does the death of Roy cleanse her? Buster Wills played the sharpshooter that killed Roy Earle at the end of the movie. He is also the stuntman that had to slide down the 50 feet or so of rock. At the bottom, Wills needed Bogart's dog, Zero, who was playing Pard, to run to his master's dead body. For the ride down the hill, he held a handful of dog treats to attract the animal. It worked, and it looked like a hell of a ride. Wills wanted to make the slide again, but was told by director Walsh, quote, "Forget it, it's good enough for the 25-cent customers," unquote. Finally, I want to talk about Velma, or Joan Leslie, as a femme fatale. She gave the appearance of sweet, wholesome goodness through the film, but at the end, she showed that she had a bad side to her. The destruction of the fantasy created in Roy's head really led to his death. So in a way, Joan Leslie may be the ultimate femme fatale because you never saw it coming. You never saw a hard side until it was too late. World famous short summary: pretty face don't make no pretty heart. I hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find connections to social media and email on the site at classicmovierev.com or in the podcast show notes. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, you can tell a friend, colleague, or family member about the show or leave a review at Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get found. If you want to comment, suggest a movie, or help out, contact me by email at jec@classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors.